Hey y'all, this is Jen and welcome to my channel First Inklings. This is a series that I'm going to be doing on the short stories in the Best American Short Stories 2018 edition, edited by Roxane Gay. And I just want to take a few minutes to say that I am no expert on short stories. This is just kind of my first delve into this kind of a video. I did a few on the 2017 edition, which you can see linked in the playlist listed below. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm no expert. I don't read a lot of short stories, so this will be kind of a learning process for us all. These are going to be discussion videos, so they will have spoilers in them. If you haven't read the short story, be sure and pick up the book and then come back and discuss this story with me. I hope you enjoy these discussions. Hey guys, so this first short story is going to be Cougar by Maria Anderson, and it is from the Iowa Review. Now, I will tell you that when I first looked at this, I was thinking that this was going to be about something totally different. I didn't know if this was going to be Cougar the animal or Cougar the older woman. So it turns out that it was the animal, and so I don't have to go on a rant about, you know, sexism or whatever there. But, so what is this story about? Just a broad overview. It's a really short, 13.5 page short story. It's not real long, but it has several themes in it. It talks about loneliness. It talks about hunger, as in being actually hungry. It talks about the responsibilities you have in life. It talks about being stagnant in life, and what makes you stagnant. And in this particular story, it's, you know, fear of change, it's loss of a parent, and it is just really having a shit life and not knowing how to get out of that, or fear of change to get out of it even. There's also talks about suicide, and then of course the cougar reference there is kind of that theme, is nature being nature, or doing what you do. You know, that sometimes, you know, the animal is just behaving the way the animal is supposed to behave, and you can't really punish them for that. So what happens in this story is that the main character's father, on, you know, when he graduates, or right after he graduates, it is the day he got his senior pictures back. I'm assuming at the end of his senior year, by what happens in the story. His dad disappears. His dad just disappears without a trace. Leaves his wallet, leaves his money, leaves his car keys, leaves his gun, all of that. Just kind of vanishes into thin air and is never heard from again. Which leaves our main character, which you get the impression that it is a guy, a son, and to take care of himself, to pay the rent, to manage the bills, to figure out life, to look for his dad. And his mom had already run off when he was a lot younger. The only people that we see him interact with is the landlord, who is a Native American who lives in a trailer on the property. We see him interact with a friend of his from high school, and then also with the older woman that he works for at the restaurant that he works at part-time. The only reference that we really have to the dad is a few lines in the beginning about kind of what he does. He took him hunting, he played cards with his friends, that they had a really quiet life. There is one line here in the very first paragraph talking about his dad. It said he was a sad, quiet guy, never argued with me or knocked me around like the other dads, like the dads of guys I used to know. So, it sounds like maybe he was kind of depressed with his, where his wife had left earlier on. I also say at the end of that we had a decent, quiet life in that trailer. So the son feels like he had a good life. But the dad's job went under. He wasn't sleeping much. He was drinking a lot. Sometimes people are depressed and suicidal and you don't know. They don't show it. But he disappeared. The dad disappears. And they never found a body. But he does keep talking about a cougar that's around. The cougar had been seen a time or two killing horses or other animals around the area there. So you get the idea that maybe he went off in the woods and he was attacked by the cougar, and that's kind of what was thought about. So for a long time, the son sits around with their dog and their dad's rifle, and just kind of in his dad's chair, just kind of looking for this cougar to shoot, and maybe for the dad to come back or something. We learn about his job too. He works in a Chinese restaurant that is run by, I think they're Korean. And he talks about his day washing the dishes there, how he likes it, because you don't have to talk to anybody. It's an easy job. Sometimes he's responsible for taking out the trash, dumping it in the river because they don't want to pay for trash pickup. And so one of the things that I like in here is that you can see the compassion. Cal, his name's Cal, and he was down there at the river throwing in trash into the river, but he saw that there was a moose and her calf drinking across the river on the other shore. And then he says, after seeing the moose, I threw the trash in the back of my truck to ditch on my way home from work. I tossed it in one of the abandoned sawmills where the flies and bees buzzed so loud in the heat that I could hear them before getting out of the truck. And I really liked the idea that he stopped throwing the trash in the river because of that moose and that calf, after he saw that. The landlord, his name's Jenny, who is described as being a Native American man, meets women online, and he tries to give Cal some advice. You need to meet somebody, you need to get out, you need to start thinking about what's going on, what you're going to do next in life, because you can't, you're not going to be able to stay here forever. You've got to move on with your life. Your dad's not coming back. You're 18. You've got, something's got to give. You got to make something of your life. And he really tries to help out Cal. Then we have, in the next scene, a friend of Cal's from high school comes in, and about a year after his dad disappears, and says, hey, I got this opportunity. I'm working up in this oil rig. We always need help. You should, come and work with me on this oil rig. You'll make lots of money, and then you can, do whatever you want. It's a short time out of the year, and then you get time off, and you are paid the big bucks, kind of thing. He says, hard living, but a couple of years of this, and I'll be doing anything I want. I didn't understand exactly what it was he did. 2 weeks on, 1 off, bud. 100 thou a year. Pretty good for a Bonner High School grad. Huh, bud? So, he's saying, do this for a couple of years, you're going to make good money, and do something else. So everybody is trying to get Cal to leave, and Cal is just like, no, maybe I'm just going to stay. And I think it's because he was hoping that his dad would come back. There's an exchange in here, too, with Jenny and Cal that talks about Cal's dad killing himself. He asked Jenny about it because that's kind of what he had decided. This exchange says, you think my dad killed himself? I asked. That's what I'd come to believe. It was easier thinking he'd made a choice and acted on it. That he hadn't left me to go live somewhere else or died by accident in some far-off ravine in the woods. Even if I didn't believe it, it seemed like the best way to stop wondering. I don't think he would, said Jenny, but you never know. And, I mean, it's hard to think that a parent would leave their kid without any word. And it's harder, as a parent, it's hard to think that. And as a child, it would be hard to come to terms with that as well. A little later on in the story, a couple pages later, the cougar gets the dog, Coda. Coda had been part of Cal's life forever. Cal's really upset about it. And he asked Jenny to kill the cougar if he sees him, because he's going to kill the cougar if he sees him. He killed his dog. He's killed his, he thinks they may have killed his dad. And Jenny says, I'm not sure an animal deserves getting shot for being hungry. Nope, I'm not sure it does at all. And, the cougar's just doing what the cougars do, and it's not the cougar's fault. That theme kind of carries on for the rest of the story. Cal gets fired from his job, and Jenny is sick and dying. And, Cal's thinking about leaving maybe, but he still is kind of stagnant. He's kind of still stuck there. This passage really kind of sums things up, I think. I think this is kind of the guts of the story. It says, the next day I went again to tell him about getting fired. I wouldn't be able to pay rent that month, or maybe ever. I'd brought the last of the 20s I'd saved to give him, but before knocking, I'd tucked 2 or 3 back in my pocket. We were standing on his porch. That morning I'd found a white, worry doll-shaped mummy of a hare's the size of my thumb, one of Coda's hairballs. No matter how much I cleaned, parts of her remained. Maybe your dad did kill himself. Maybe it's the best to think that. Man, I think about going that way, taking a rifle and going out back into the forest here, maybe out on the river. I've lived a good life, I'm about ready to give up. Jenny spit into the planter. I think Coda maybe went that way too. I don't believe you, I said. She ran. She was trying to get away from the thing. I saw it. But I did believe him. Jenny looked in his mailbox. There was nothing inside but a few crumpled papers. Someone miles away was burning trash. He put his right tail over his shoulder and arranged it in the middle of his chest. I've been feeding him, he said. The cougar. He told me he had been setting out meat for him for a while now. I know he killed Coda, and I'm sorry, but being hungry's no one's fault. Everyone's hungry. Everyone's got to eat. I could taste the burning garbage on my tongue. I'd like you to keep feeding him for me when I'm not around, Jenny continued. That's the one thing I need you to do for me. And I think that passage shows compassion, and that animals and humans can both do desperate things when they're hungry. And that hunger doesn't necessarily just mean for food in your belly. Sometimes it's hunger for a change, or hunger for getting away from a place, hunger for companionship, or hunger for money, or whatever. I mean, there can be lots of different things that someone can be hungry for, but just because someone's hungry doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them not a good person or not a good animal, or, you know, just doing what we do as humans. We can still have compassion for other people and for animals. In the end, a few days later, Cal did see the cougar. He was walking towards Jenny's trailer, and you know, he did see it, and he decided in the end not to kill the cougar. That he understood and decided to show compassion himself and not kill the animal, even if the animal took his dog and possibly his father. You know, it was just doing what animals do. So I think that Cal showed, in the end, you know, I think he understood what his dad, you know, went through, what Jenny was trying to tell him, what, you know, kind of worked through his sadness and his anger and his loneliness, and hopefully, you know, was able to turn his life around and make something of himself. Maybe he took that job on the oil rigs after all. Maybe he got out of town and started a life somewhere else. You know, we don't know. That's my thoughts on this short story, Cougar. There's a lot in it, a lot of good themes, a lot of good showing of desperation and loneliness, and being stagnant and not moving forward in life, and what it can cost you when you don't move forward, and when you remain stagnant. So that's it. Let me know if you've read this story. Let me know what you thought of it. Did you pick up on the same themes I did? How do you think Cal and Jenny handled the loss of Cal's father and of Coda? Do you think that the cougar deserved to die? Or deserved to live? Would you have fed the cougar even though it was feeding on other animals nearby? What are your thoughts? So that's it. That's my thoughts on Cougar from the Best American Short Stories 2018 edition, edited by Roxanne Gay. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I do discuss short stories every Sunday here on my channel, and the next one will be a YA short story, and then we'll be back into this one the following week. Until next time, bye.